Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. Find out more about Cloud Interact by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. It's time for another ACP, and I'm joined as ever by Alex. How are you doing, Alex?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Good, yeah, very well, thank you. And this time round, we're going to be talking all about automation in the contact center, which is kind of a very topical subject, I think, to be talking about at the moment. Everybody seems to be talking about automation and kind of in the context of AI, but actually, as we're going to talk through, I think there's lots of things kind of with AI, but also outside the AI bubble as well, that I think you can make use of, and especially as it comes to sort of the contact center and Amazon Connect specifically. So let's dig in then. So Alex, when we talk about automation, what do we mean in this kind of context?
Yeah, good question. And I kind of, when I was pulling together some show notes for this, realized that I was, even in the notes, using automation in many different contexts, I think. So probably good that we dig in on exactly what we mean. But I'd kind of noted down, generally, we're talking about the use of technology to streamline tasks that might have traditionally been performed solely by human staff. So adding that layer of technology to improve your processes, improve efficiency, hopefully provide a better customer experience, probably some element of cost reduction as well.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add on to that is possibly the addition of things that you wouldn't even have tried to do before, like, the addition of additional capabilities or additional services, which I think is it's important at the moment as well, because customer service is so important. Differentiated customer service is so important at the moment. Everyone's trying to go the extra mile and do a little bit more and everything like that. So I think automation, as well as streamlining things that traditionally humans can do, I think can also unlock sort of things that you wouldn't necessarily been able to do otherwise.
Yeah, great point, actually. And well, I guess we know, because we've been doing some projects with customers around that kind of thing, which is some really interesting stuff to be involved with. Yeah,
definitely. So we're talking about automation, and the reason we wanted to talk about automation and do this now, it seemed like the right time to talk about it. Lots of people are talking about kind of productivity, and that is often used as the key driver for doing automation, but it's not always just about, doing more with less, is it? Or, anything like that. There are other reasons, I think, for automation, just above and beyond straight productivity, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, well, lots of potential use cases for it. I mean, I mentioned the better customer experience thing, which in some way you would hope it boils down to that a bit. We don't want to just be undertaking total cost-cutting exercises. I think we want to be able to provide a better customer experience as well. And if a side effect of that is perhaps we can reduce some costs, or we can make some efficiencies and allow our staff to focus on other more interesting things, then that should be a win across the board.
Yeah, definitely. And that touches on, I think, another area for doing this as well. Like, another reason, I think, is if you think about agent productivity and agent happiness, not just customer happiness, but agent happiness as well. I think there's an opportunity to remove some of the drudgery from some agents' workloads and get rid of some of that sort of really repeatable, tedious stuff, and it really sort of empower agents as well to be able to do a better job, whether that's through removing the repetitive stuff or just using automation to give them more of the information they need quicker, so they can do a better job of providing that good customer service. I think all of that results in happier agents, and hopefully can then reduce that kind of agent churn statistic, which I know a lot of companies care about as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I guess when I was sort of thinking of some examples of automation in the contact center, going way back, probably one of the first examples was just bringing in your basic IVR system. So I guess at some point, probably before I was working in contact centers, but you might have had all your calls handled through a switchboard or something. So no IVR means the calls have got to be directed somehow. Probably quite a tedious job for somebody to do, to be directing all of the calls sort of manually for a contact center. So it's a good thing that we at some point in the past got over that and brought IVR in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is the right time as well, I think, to be talking about automation and its value and what you have today. And it might be, like you say, something that has been automation but isn't necessarily new. So like your IVR example, it might be some of the newer stuff in Connect, which we're going to go through in a minute. But I think at the moment, like if you look at what's happening in the AI landscape, which obviously you and I are both kind of close to in that sort of day to day, I think we're entering a period of increased automation with AI and agentic behavior. So actually for organizations having a groundwork of automation to lean on, and I think it will really help businesses be very well equipped to enter that arena, so that when you come to look at AI and agentic behavior and understand where is this useful, I think being able to go through the list of things that you're currently automating and understand how can this tie into our agents, how can we have agents take some of these or kick off some of these processes or assist with some of these processes, I think that will be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully some of the topics we've noted down for discussion might help with that. Maybe we won't cover everything, but certainly some examples of different areas where you might look to introduce or increase your levels of automation.
Yeah. Let's get into the list then, because I was very surprised. I mean, you've done all the homework here, so thank you. I was kind of surprised how many different places automation appears in Amazon Connect, and it's kind of more than I thought. I mean, you started off with IVRs. Yep, that's a great one. And yes, that completely makes sense. But then after you've got those IVRs in process and in play, you're not done, right? You can extend on that. You can build on that, because things like chatbots, I suppose, walk through people through that same sort of process, but then you're building on it, right? Because then they're getting smarter. And this comes down to some of the automation being able to do things you wouldn't be able to do before. You're moving on then from just the kind of press 1 for sales, 2 for something. You're moving into a bot that says, well, what do you want to do? I know that you don't necessarily know the names of all our departments, but just tell us what you're trying to do, and we will map that to one of our departments. So it's still an IVR, but it's a more intelligent system.
Yeah, and I suppose that's still at the most basic level, and we'll move on and talk about sort of full self-service. But ultimately, whether it's a DTMF IVR, press 1 for sales, 2 for service, or using something like Lex to ask the customer who they want to talk to, ultimately you want the technology to get the customer to the right team. So that, it seems like it's fairly basic, fairly low level, but it is a type of automation, and it's reducing that sort of manual intervention by someone, hopefully. And everyone's got their own feelings about badly designed IVRs and chatbots, but hopefully it should get you to most of the time to the right place that you want to be, or right person you want to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's kind of on automating the interactions, customer interactions. What else have we got?
Moving on from that, as we alluded to, I guess we're into self-service as a general topic of automation. So maybe a bit more than getting Tom to the right place or right agent in the call center, but allowing him to actually reach his desired outcome without even having to talk to an agent. And again, that has been around for ages. Before chatbots were as widely used, things like maybe getting the status of an order or requesting some details or a repeat prescription, something some of our customers do via automation. As I mentioned, it could have been via DTMF originally and may still be. That might still be a good way to do it. We're having a bit of a discussion on Teams today about the best way of capturing certain information. So, for example, if it's just capturing a number, your phone keypad is really well equipped to do that. If it's things like email addresses, though, that you're trying to capture, actually, you have to think a little bit more carefully about how you do it. Obviously, you can't do it with 0 to 9, and that maybe it's a little bit more difficult to make Lex understand an email address really reliably. And then also not just the voice channel, right? So we started talking about voice, but you could have this via chat or WhatsApp. We mentioned probably in one of the last podcast or the one before that WhatsApp's been introduced recently as a native channel.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think this self-service stuff is where companies really start to see some of the benefits of that, the productivity benefits in terms of being able to take a proportion of their calls and not need to route them through to an agent. And so some of this comes down to understanding your contact center and understanding what types of calls you get. And so everyone's contact center is going to be different. But if yours is one where you have a number of calls that you think could be dealt with in this way, it's absolutely worth looking into, I think, because it makes a big difference. And like I say, you don't want your agents to just be conduits, like reading devices between systems. That feels wasteful, right? Agents can do so much more than that and should be doing so much more than that. So I think that's maybe another way of looking at it. If all your agent is doing is serving as a reading device between two systems or between the customer and one of your systems, that then maybe that is something that you could look at doing self-service.
Yeah, it's probably worth touching on. It's something that a lot of people mention around sort of AI in general, but making sure that the underlying data is actually good to support if you're further automating self-service. So things like knowledge bases, if you're trying to make it so that a customer can find out answers to FAQs, for example, are you happy that the information in that FAQ repository, is it actually good? Is it up to date? Is it kept up to date? So that customers have access to the right information rather than 10-year-old information.
Yeah, definitely. And then this is where AI can start to help, because the answer is always, or the solution is always quite nuanced. And because the problem is quite nuanced. It's like you've got an FAQ bank of questions and they're like your model questions, model answers. Is the question that the customer is asking a direct one of those questions? Because if it is, you ought to be able to self-service the answer. But if it isn't, you kind of maybe don't want to give that answer because it might not be appropriate. That's where an agent can help, because the agent will understand the difference between what the customer is asking and the model question. Understanding when to hand off to an agent and when to read the model answer is stuff that AI can help with today, but it needs a bit of finesse and it needs a bit of work and training and stuff like that. So yeah, we're at that place now, which I think is really good. The other thing as well, I guess, is alongside that is reducing some of the training burden for agents. I'm thinking of some of the things like the step-by-step guides and things like that, where you might have a process that is fairly unfamiliar to an agent, but it's well documented enough so that they can step through the process and do the things that need to be done in the right order, follow the correct process, or whatever else it is.
Yeah, and we've sort of, I guess, strayed unintentionally into the next sort of broad section for automation potential, which is agent assistance. And the step-by-step guides one is a really good one. Perhaps warrants its own podcast episode at some point. I don't think we've sort of fully talked through step-by-step guides, but
you're right.
Being able to present the agent with that appropriate step-by-step guide based on what's happened in the call. So maybe you've done your automation in your self-service IVR. So they've made decisions in the IVR and pointed themselves down a certain route. Maybe they want to open a new savings account, for example. When they get through to the agent, you can present the agent with an appropriate step-by-step guide for that particular process, so that they've got all the context appropriate information to guide the customer through the process. Really good sort of supplement to training, being able to have step-by-step guide to work through it with them.
And there's definitely a case. I'm not sure if I think we're just kind of on the edge of what's possible, but you can kind of totally see how those step-by-step guides can evolve to being something that an agent, an AI agent, like a non-human agent, can take the customer through as well. So you're almost now, again, this is why I think it comes down to you don't have to have all the answers, but start somewhere. Like, you don't have to have a fully AI solution, just start somewhere. If that somewhere is firming up your process, so all your agents have step-by-step guides, that's a really good starting point, because when the next step on that is like to take those step-by-step guides and say, okay, do we need a human agent in the picture here? For some of these processes, could an AI agent look at that step-by-step guide and then take the customer through it? But you've done that sort of, to your point, of getting the data in the right place and getting it sort of nailed down.
And I think you alluded to the kind of the understanding of your data and what's happening as well. So, and another thing we've been doing a bit of work on lately, but do you actually know what's happening in your queues? Do you know what the different types of transactions are that are carried out? Do you know what the really repetitive ones are that maybe you could abstract to the IVR layer? Is there something you can do to analyze all of the calls coming into a particular queue and to figure out which ones have the potential to bring in automation?
Yes, yeah, we talked about that quite a lot in our last episode. So if you didn't get that, go check that one out as well, because we talked about that and this is some of the stuff we're doing in that area.
On the agent assistant side as well, of course, in Connect, you can, if you've got contact lens analytics turned on in real time, you can use Q in Amazon Connect to detect what's happening in real time in the conversation and to surface information from your knowledge base, your connected knowledge base, to the agent. So not even sort of step by step where you're already defining which step-by-step guide based on the inputs from the customer in the IVR. This is more real time, more dynamic, being able to figure out what's being asked for and then presenting the agent with the appropriate information to be able to help with that.
And I would say, if you're a bit on the fence or even fully off the fence and thinking there's no way that AI can answer any of the questions that come into our call center, or you're on the fence about, I just don't know whether that's true or not, I would say actually that feature of Amazon Connect is a really useful one for you to do some trialing with. So what I mean by that is go build up the FAQ that you think represents like the really common questions, or as many questions as possible, and the model questions, model answers for your contact center, and then put it into Amazon Q and give it to your agents, and then just start sampling by asking your agents, okay, did it surface the right thing at the right time? And was the thing, did it do it at all? Because if it didn't, then that, you've got work to do. If it did, was it the right answer? And if you were to read that answer out, would that have answered the question? And then try and transition from, okay, read the answer out and then use your knowledge to score essentially. And then, because what you're doing basically is trying to match up, is your FAQ good enough to kind of fly by itself essentially? And that middle ground of having the agent as the quality gate, I think, is a really useful way of validating whether that's true or not.
Yeah, agreed. The next possible section for automation that I'd noted down to talk about is around workflow automation. Again, possibly sounds a little bit vague, but I think there's loads of options here. Let's dig into a couple. You might want to add some automation to your post-call follow-up. For example, disposition codes. I'm sure a lot of contact centers use them. Not necessarily natively accessible within the Amazon Connect CCP, but you can set them up within Agent Workspace, which we have done for a few customers. But if, for example, an agent is selecting a particular disposition code at the end of a call, maybe you might want to have some sort of event-driven architecture off the back of that to maybe automatically create a task for another team. So you could create a task type contact, inject it into the queue for your after sales team, for example, to schedule them to carry out some sort of follow-up event. Or maybe sending information via SMS. If a customer's navigated through the self-service IVR, perhaps they've got to some information in the FAQs like we touched upon. They've been given the information over the phone, maybe follow it up with a text message which just summarizes the information that you've given them, or gives them a link to the right place on the website, the FAQ section, just so they can then come back to it.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for have a conversation with a company with a contact center and then get an SMS afterwards, which is, here's the 3-line summary of what we just spoke about. Here is what we're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's any files we referenced. Here's a unique reference number you can go and get the if you ever need the recording or you want to talk about it or something, here's a number to quote. That would be amazing. Be so empowering.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, we've certainly done the sending links or sending URLs bit, but I like what you say there about maybe like the almost the wrap up of the Gen AI summary, like you get at the end of a Connect call in contact search. Have that for the customer, like you say, with the outcomes and actions and relevant points.
It's totally possible. I just don't think we've had anyone ask for it yet. But I think, as a customer, I think that would be really useful. I could see how that would be really useful. And then, yes, SMS, But also, if you've done all that work to send the SMS, why not also just like somehow tag it into their like account profile? So when I'm online, as well as like my orders and update my details, I can just see a list of tickets essentially, but like the phone calls, and I can just see the summaries, and it would make it so much better for coming back to stuff, or those long running sagas that you have with, you know, your TV subscription provider or whatever it is, where you're making multiple. My wife at the moment is going through the process of car insurance claiming stuff because somebody drove into her, and it's just a million calls to a million different people who don't talk to each other, and it's so frustrating because it's like, I don't feel like I should be the person project managing this repair.
Yeah, Tom and I have had this as a topic of conversation because we're also having the same thing, and but the insurance company don't seem to even be able to find our car. So I think you're at least one step forward in the process there, Lucky.
So can you report it stolen? Does that help?
Well, maybe, yeah, stolen by some guy with a recovery truck.
Yeah. Oh dear. Oh,
That was the last we saw of it.
They definitely need Amazon Connect. What else we got? Because I'm like I say, I'm surprised that there's still more automation to be had out of Amazon Connect, but there is.
Yeah, a couple more things. So one to touch on, and this one was recently revamped in Connect and mentioned around the reinvent, but it's the automated outbound campaigns, outbound dialer, you might refer to it as. So being able to automate your outreach across multiple channels, maybe on the channel of choice for a particular customer. You might want to send reminders or follow-up emails or text messages, or more traditional sort of outbound dialing capability. So the automation of setting up calls out to customers, either in the traditional fashion, so sort of agent-led, agent-involved, where you set up the call, you connect the outbound call to the customer with an available agent, and kind of balance that, blend it with their inbound work as well. So you're sort of maximizing the workload of the agent population. Or you can also do it in an agentless fashion as well. So you might make the call and connect the customer with a Lex bot and give them notifications or allow them to perform self-service actions. So yeah, it's like I say, recently revamped. It looks to be, we did mention this when the announcement was made, but it looks like it's sort of more heavily driven using Amazon Connect customer profiles. So you're natively sort of leveraging that customer profiles information when you're setting up your segments, your sort of target lists of customers. But yes, I think there's some nice potential there for really sort of making customized, targeted campaigns to your customers on their channel of choice.
Yeah, I think this is one of those areas that it would have been quite hard to do this in any scalable way without some of this technology. But yeah, like this is kind of, I think, exciting if you do it right, and spammy if you do it bad. But like, you can totally see customers that you know really well and that you've already had interactions with in the past. You know, you might do something like, you see somebody browsing on your website, you know who they are because they're all logged in, they put some stuff in their basket and then they don't complete it for a few days. Maybe that's an outbound call to say, like, are there any good reasons? Would a 20% voucher help because you've been with us before? Like, there's so many things you can do. There's so much potential there that I just don't think, yes, you could have got humans to do that before, but I just don't think anybody would, because it doesn't scale, and it isn't worth, you know, the ROI doesn't stack up, but it kind of does if you can do it, you know, set it up once and just let it run.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, lots of scope there. The next one, we seem to be having quite a few conversations about this recently. I also put together a short overview video about it just to try and cover off a couple of things within Connect in the console that you can set up for this, but it's around quality monitoring. So the performance evaluation forms in Amazon Connect, there are a few different things you can do to introduce automation here. So the first one is that you can use the built-in Ask AI capability. If you have that turned on, it's where in your evaluation form, you get this little Ask AI button, which uses Gen AI to go and try and determine what the answer is to that particular question in your evaluation form. So it's arguably, it's not sort of fully automating the process, but it is speeding up. It's speeding up the process of completing the forms, and it's making it so that your quality team don't necessarily have to sort of listen through the entire duration of the call recording to be able to answer certain questions.
That's powerful. Yeah, again, another example of something that you just couldn't do at scale.
I think that's probably why we're having so many conversations about this. It's QM, quality monitoring, has quite often been something in the past where without these types of automation, it's sort of best endeavors, I guess. We talk to customers that have really mature processes in place for it, but they're targeting like evaluating 2 calls per agent per month, for example. And wouldn't it be great if you can move to something closer to 100%, at least if you're, maybe not giving it that full sort of human eye on every single contact still, but knowing if you're hitting certain metrics around compliance, for example, hitting the really important KPIs. A couple of other ways to do that. So you can set up contact lens rules in order to have your questions in the form automatically answered. So I mentioned the compliance type thing, so a particular phrase that must be stated for compliance purposes. In that demo video, I just set up a phrase, "We're authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority," and the contact lens rule determines just a yes or no whether that phrase was stated during the course of the contact. If it wasn't, it can straight away mark it as non-compliant, and then the QM team can look into it in more detail.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's really cool. Where can folks find that video? Is that?
Yeah, so in LinkedIn, we can put a link to it in the chat as well. We've also got the Cloud Interact YouTube page as well, which we can also include a link for, and it's on there.
Perfect. Yep, that sounds good. So yeah, people can find it and watch that video, because there's so much in quality monitoring that I think we've just scraped the surface just a little bit just now. But yeah, there's loads in that. So definitely.
It's a really exciting area, I think. Like I say, probably just for the potential of going from that 2 agents per month being evaluated to really improve on that. Another option that you can do, and this is sort of moving towards fully automating it, but you can use Gen AI to answer up to 10 questions per contact in a form. So when you're setting up your form, you can include your evaluation criteria in the sort of the notes section against a particular question, and then Gen AI will give you an answer to the question based on your criteria. You can then go through and you can sort of manually approve or edit the answers, or you can, moving on to the final point, if you have automation in place for all of your questions, whether it's via the Gen AI method or via the rules, you can actually fully automate the completion and the submission of the whole form if you want to.
That's so cool. Yeah. That is really powerful, and gives you a lot more insight into actually what's happening in your contact center as well. And not so much the content, but like, whether, how well things are going, and certainly those compliance things are super important. No, really, really good.
Yeah, really excited about that one.
Turns out there's lots of ways to automate Amazon Connect. I kind of want to set some homework, which is, I don't know, I was thinking about this over Christmas. I feel like we should end the podcast by saying homework for people, because otherwise it's too easy to listen as you're driving or walking, whatever it is you're doing. So I think the homework from this episode is to go and conduct an automation audit. So like make a big list of all the things that you do today, and then another list of what you could do or what you'd like to do. And I think it's important to have both those lists, because as the AI bus comes along, as your boss increasingly demands that AI goes into all the things, so you get a good understanding then of what that really means to you and your contact center, because you'll have that in front of you. You'll have the kind of the state of where you are today with all those automation things and how AI can help with that, but then also what you want to do tomorrow as well. And hopefully some of the ideas in this episode will give you some sort of food for thought for what that looks like and where you can sort of add in automation.
I have another one actually, real quick, just sort of harking back to some of the great guests we had in last year, but testing, right? Automating your testing. So we had a really good discussion with the guys at NoPake last year, a few episodes ago. Really, really big scope for doing more in that area. I think, we've all spent a lot of time late at night or during migrations making test calls. Why not try and automate that? Yeah, so definitely. Yes, huge scope for automating testing. Sorry to come in with that one.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's such a good idea because you use that confidence as well. you've heard that as well. Like, is everything okay with the contact center? Can somebody make a call just to make sure? Because it seems quite quiet today. There are problems. Like having a thing running all the time, so that things are going okay. So
100%,
really good.
Automate that.
Definitely. Just before we go, a bit of a housekeeping announcement. So Cloud Interact, it's a new year. We have a new logo. We've got new branding. It's all very exciting. So you'll be able to see updated branding and some updated colors and things like that. Not massive changes, just kind of subtle improvements. We're making subtle improvements here as well. We're going to switch to a monthly format rather than every 2 weeks. We're doing our planning for 2025, and we think that's the best format to continue to bring you really good content. We're quite excited about bringing you some new partners and new people that we've found and spoken to, and we want to carry on doing what we've been doing in 2024, looking at updates, announcements, as well as digging into some sort of details. So look out for the next episode. It's going to be a little later than usual on the last Monday of February, and then we'll kind of go monthly from there. So that's the plan. Thank you very much for your time and your automation expertise, Alex.
Thanks, Tom. It was good fun to talk about that. Lots to talk about.
It was. We managed to fill well over 30 minutes, so it is definitely time to bring the episode to an end. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you won't miss the next episode. Even if it does come out a little bit later, you won't miss it because your podcast player will tell you about it. Whilst you're there, we'd love it if you would rate and review us. And if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how Cloud Interact can help you on your contact center journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.